I guess to really kind of hone in on trying to provide some value for people that might be watching the video, if I'm running a natural retail store, let's just say I'm only been in it for 3 or 4 years. I
Yeah.
haven't had the time that you've had to
Right,
really invest in the community and to be able to do a lot of these things.
right,
Where would you start? If I've got a grocery store down the road who's
sure.
really starting to really kill me on price, for
Yeah,
example, and you didn't mention price, by the way, which was very interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute.
sure.
But if I'm just starting, if I'm in 3 to 5 years and I don't have that base like you've got, of the
Right.
laundry list you just gave me of great things, where should I start? What do you think is most important?
I think you have to start with yourself and your understanding of why you're in business, and that you start at it, and you can do this at any point. But and I don't want to discount people who get into it necessarily into the natural retail business just because. But most people that I know have get started in this business because they have a belief in something greater than just business.
Yeah.
We all need to profit. That's our way of business. That's our way of surviving and ideally thriving. Without profit, we don't. We can't survive. Certainly can't thrive. So I don't want to dismiss profit as being very important. And I sometimes have to remind myself that we need to actually make a living, pay people good money, pay people fair wages. Otherwise, we won't retain our employees. So I think in my case and in anyone's case, it's to figure out what your larger mission is and not let it overwhelm you to the point where you're ignoring your business. That's dangerous. But to allow that or encourage, use that to force, push your business forward, make it go forward in a way that you understand, and then you need to think about how you communicate that to your customers. So I think from any point of business, you need to think about your community. At any point when you're starting a business, at any point when you're in the middle of business, you need to be thinking about how you're involved in your community and what can you do to further that involvement. And you never do it simply thinking, okay, this will grow my business, but you never let that leave your thought process either. I think it's as critical to be aware that you want to make honorable, decent profits as it is to be aware that short of your connecting with the community, you will not likely make those honorable, decent profits. And this is an opportunity. And instead of thinking as everything as a threat, which a lot of us do sometimes. Everything seems like a threat, and if you turn on the news in the morning, it all just seems like bad news all the time. Well, we represent something, I don't want to go too far with this, we represent something that suggests good news. We're showing that there is another way to run our lives and our business, our families, our communities, and especially when dealing with strong local economies, that we can be part of something that is really beneficial to ourselves and to our communities. And we never think of ourselves as isolated from the business, from our community, and from our local region. And so, no matter where you are in business, I think that's important. And if someone started their business without that in mind, they need to develop that.
I totally agree. So, you kind of boiled it down to two things, I think, as kind of step one, start with yourself, believe in something greater. I think I'm on line with you 100% on that, right? It's about intentionality.
Absolutely.
Your relationships, what's your intention, and getting that right, I think, is first step. And that, if I can just build on that, that flows down to your staff.
Yes.
That flows down to how and at Cambridge Naturals, I love it because you've got staff recommendations, and you can tell you put a lot of thought into that. It's a way to connect to the consumer right there on the shelf.
Sure.
And when people, so that intentionality of doing something greater is huge. And then number two, I think you mentioned, is think community from the beginning.
Yes.
And I love how you said take the good news out to your community.
Right.
That's huge.